Last year, the international community, including the United States, came together to discuss and sign the Paris Climate Agreement. It was a global acknowledgement to tackle climate change. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to pull out of that agreement. What will a Trump administration mean for the environment and climate change policies? Can we look to the private sector to innovate solutions? My next guest is a longtime energy and environment reporter. He attended those talks in Paris, and he's here to give us some perspective. David Biello is author of the new book, The Unnatural World, The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age. And if you want to read an excerpt from it, it's up there on our website at sciencefriday.com/unnatural. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I know that we really don't know what Donald Trump is going to do because he changes his position a whole lot every day almost. The Paris Climate Agreement, a big change story. What do you think that he might pull us out of that agreement?
Well, I mean, the only thing Donald Trump has been consistent on is his inconsistency. So like you said, we really don't know. However, his statements so far would lead one to believe that yes, he will attempt to pull us out of the Paris Climate Accord. He can't do it directly. The agreement was kind of structured in such a way to prevent that kind of outcome. That said, most of the commitments under the Paris Agreement are voluntary, so he can just fail to fulfill them. And based on his appointments to the EPA so far, the man who is heading his transition team is a longtime climate denier. And
who's that?
Myron Ebell, somebody who I've interviewed many times in the past. He comes from the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He's about as climate skeptic as they come, pretty suave about it. So not your run-of-the-mill climate skeptic. But that's the person who's leading the transition at the EPA, and that would lead one to believe that Donald Trump meant what he said and is going to act or not act on climate change.
Our number 844-724-8255, talking with David Biello, author of The Unnatural World. President Obama passed the Clean Power Plan to reduce carbon pollution from power plants. Mr. Trump said that he wants to bring coal back. I mean, do we believe him on that? And is it possible? I mean, there are companies that just have gone bankrupt. Coal companies.
Yeah. Well, he is certainly capable of overturning the Clean Power Plan, particularly if if Myron and his other minions kind of gut the EPA, then the Clean Power Plan will kind of die with them. That said, there are economic trends that even Donald Trump can't control, one of which is we have a lot of cheap natural gas. And that's really what killed coal, not Obama administration regulations or anything else. And that trend is going to continue because Donald Trump has also said that he wants to drill for all of America's abundant fossil fuel resources. That would presumably include natural gas. Natural gas will stay cheap and coal will stay dead.
Of course, we're just speculating because we don't know what he really would do. One of the agencies that have acknowledged climate change is the Department of Defense. In fact, I remember the DOD said this is like, national security issue. Could you not use that if you want to do something? Could you not say, hey, I'm going to pass it off because it's a DOD imperative that we do something about climate?
Absolutely. And certainly I would suggest that the Department of Defense is going to proceed on that front regardless. They have their own kind of intrinsic reasons for wanting to act on climate change. They aren't necessarily tied to acting on climate change. They have to do with energy security at military bases, getting themselves off foreign oil. If the Air Force wants to scramble jets, they don't want to have to rely on Saudi Arabia to fuel them. So those trends are going to continue regardless of who's in power, and that means that at least some action on climate change will continue.
Yeah, because we've had the Secretary of the Navy on the show talking about how green they have become. You would think that you can't turn these things around, I would think.
You cannot turn them around entirely. And like I said, there are kind of intrinsic reasons why the military would want to take these actions. That said, you can certainly slow them down via your funding choices.
Getting back to the EPA, do you think you can just do away with the whole EPA, clean air, clean water? Or do you think it's just parts that go away? Or do you think the whole thing could go away?
Well, it's enshrined in law. They would have to make a very concerted effort to get rid of the Environmental Protection Agency entirely. That would probably be the kind of consistent regulatory effort that perhaps Donald Trump doesn't have the consistency for. But in the shorter term, they can certainly gut it and ensure that the EPA does not act as kind of a strong regulator, but is a little bit more of a rubber stamp for greater pollution.
What about the Senate? Does it have any control over any of these things that might happen?
Well, absolutely. Congress has the power of the purse, but Congress is also in Republican hands. So, they're going to decide what their funding priorities are, and wherever the dollars flow, that's where the action is going to take place.
Are China and other countries looking toward us about their climate policy? They had the Paris Agreement. They all signed on to it. If they see us pull out, does that give them cover to pull out also?
Absolutely. Now, that said, I do think that just as the U.S. military is acting on climate for its own intrinsic reasons, countries like China and India are acting on climate for their own intrinsic reasons. China is suffering through horrific air pollution, and acting on climate is one way for them to address that. They are extremely concerned about drought as one of the possible impacts from climate change, and so they're going to act on climate regardless. That said, all the international pressure on them to act will have essentially evaporated. Only the European Union will remain as kind of a international goad for climate action.
But as you say, for all of us, I've been to China. I've seen the horrid pollution they have. It's in their own interest, right?
Exactly.
They don't have to do it because we do it. They want to take care of their own population.
Exactly. And frankly, the Communist Party views it as a threat to stability. So they're going to act on it. There's no question about that. That said, they're not going to act on it as fast or kind of to the same scale if without the pressure, the additional pressure provided by the United States. And frankly, our cooperation in kind of technology transfer and all the rest of it. And that is where maybe there's hope from a Trump administration. They're interested in kind of American prosperity. There are a lot of jobs in installing solar panels. There are a lot of jobs in wind turbines. Perhaps they will pursue those.
Well, you go to you go to Iowa and you see how per capita they are leading the country in wind power.
Exactly.
How do you go back to Iowa and say I don't want to keep this thing up?
You can't do it. So I don't think that will happen. And the states are going to be leading the charge on this. And frankly, a lot of the people who voted to elect Donald Trump are the most passionate advocates for things like solar power because, kind of like the military, they enjoy that idea of energy independence, that I'm kind of free of my utility because I have solar panels on my roof. Solar is kind of a bipartisan, attractive power source, and that's not going away either.
You would think that if you wanted to have it always, you could invest in these green energies because it is good for business and people like it, and it might be a way of uniting all different kinds of people. Do you think that might happen?
One can hope.
You're not very optimistic about this.
Well, I mean, with Myron Ebell and some of the other appointments that seem to be being made, it's not the change in Washington, D.C. that I think people voted for. It's kind of the old stale ideas that we saw in the 1990s are now resurging.
Well, do you see then us losing money for research in the sciences, and especially sciences that have to do with the environment?
Quite possibly.
Green energy, things like that.
I mean, if you read Trump's contract with voters, it explicitly wants to transfer money from environmental programs to infrastructure improvements. Now, depending on what those infrastructure improvements might be, that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Let's go to the phones. Our number 844-724-8255. Deborah in Brown Deer, Wisconsin, you're up first today. Welcome to Science Friday.
Hello, Ira and guest. I really feel Donald Trump is not educated, and it doesn't take a lot of reading or thinking to figure out that the effect humans that humans living on a planet and using up the natural resources are having an effect on it. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think now that he's president, he'll be more accountable and step up to the plate. At least I hope so.
So you think he might change his mind, or the president, as Werner Herzog told us, the office might shape him?
That's what, when he said that, when Werner said that, I had just been thinking that. That's my best hope, that I have a saying, bad things are good things in disguise, and this just might be one of them.
All right, Deborah, thanks, and have a good holiday weekend. Thanks for calling. Yeah, there is, as you say, we really don't know.
That is the hope.
What the future is, environmentally speaking. Where would you look for a first sign that something might be different than the way he's been talking during the campaign?
The first sign is obviously these appointments, but the second sign would be who actually ends up in charge. It doesn't seem that the Trump team had a lot of plans for post-election, and so they're kind of scrambling a little bit to get some transition in place. The people who end up in place will determine, whether there's hope or not. And some of the statements that I think President-elect Trump will make in coming days will tell us, what does he really believe, if anything.
When we signed you up to come on the program to talk about your book, The Unnatural World, we had no idea we'd be talking.
Yes.
But this, as a lot of people didn't. But let's talk about the book. And it's subtitled The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age. What does that mean?
Well, we're talking about kind of this global effort to bring human impacts kind of more into line with the standing of the environment. And, obviously electing Donald Trump seems to have set that back. And perhaps we put the man into Anthropocene again. Old white men are in charge again. But, there's still hope. We're in a race. It's a long haul. It's not over. There's long
way to go.
Never time to stop, right?
Let's go to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Melissa, hi. Welcome to Science Friday, Melissa.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment on the observation that your speaker made earlier about how solar PV, it tends to be a crossover sector. And my husband and I own a small solar company, and our clients tend to be less motivated by politics and more by the sense of that independence that your guest spoke of, and that sense of being able to grow your own energy, so to speak. And so I think that there's a lot of hope. And so that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, there you go. It's some nice hopeful words for this holiday weekend on Science Friday from PRI, Public Radio International. I'm Ira Plato here with David Biello, author of The Unnatural World, The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age. We have a little bit of an excerpt of that book on our website, sciencefriday.com/unnatural. So there was a little bit of if you want to find a way, you can find some sort of compromise if you want to.
Yes, and I think some of these trends are unstoppable no matter who's in office. I mean, honestly, as the Obama administration showed, the presidency only has so much power. There's only so much that Trump can do. Yes, he can do some harm, but he could also end up doing some good. And perhaps this is kind of the last gasp of an old way of thinking, and will spur greater change and innovation in the future.
Speaking of innovation, I'm glad you brought that back up. What specific innovations do you see in your book that could be on the horizon? Well,
clearly we're going to need better technologies to cope with carbon dioxide if the Trump agenda bears out. If we do end up burning more coal, more natural gas, more oil, we're going to have to figure out a way to take that CO2 back out of the sky. That could be plants. They already do it, but they can only do so much. So we could turn to kind of farming the ocean as one way of pulling CO2 out of the sky. Or we can build machines that can do the job for us. These technologies exist. We could employ them. We could put money into their research and development because we're going to need them.
Does carbon sequestration, is that part of it? Does it work? Has it been proven yet?
We have it. We have the technology, as the saying goes. It's just too expensive. So if we make a concerted effort on R&D and put money into it, if Trump really believes in clean coal, as he said on the campaign trail, we can make that a reality. And frankly, that would be a great thing because China needs it, India needs it. They burn more coal than we do. And the whole world needs that clean coal technology.
If you wanted to put people back to work, they're very easy green jobs and green technologies and green research.
Exactly.
You could sink the money into.
Exactly.
What if we lined that big wall he's going to make with solar panels?
It's in the desert. It's in the desert. It's pretty sunny.
You call Elon Musk and say, put those shingles on the whole wall.
Yeah.
But that kind of idea, though, if you're going to, what people are saying, it could be $25 billion to build a wall if it ever gets built.
Right.
Think, you could be spending that money into creating jobs and clean energy jobs.
Exactly. And, quite frankly, the wall, in addition to being a humanitarian disaster, would be an ecological disaster. So it's not the best idea. But that said, if we can unite around some ideas that are maybe a little bit better, like solar PV, which seems to cut across party lines and voter affiliations, then there is still hope.
So we'll take some glass half full, maybe. Yeah, but as we said 3-4 times already, we have no idea how this is going to shake out, who's going to be in charge, who's going to run the EPA, and about the National Science Foundation. How much money will that get? That's important.
And how interested Trump is in any of this. It may be that he is not going to make any decisions in this area and kind of outsource that to other people, or it's possible that he cares about this deeply on some level that we're not aware of, and will implement whatever his own agenda is.
Well, we'll take solace that he does come from New York, where we're sitting in, and we have lots of big ideas here. Thank you, David, and good luck with the book.
Thank you.
David Biello, author of the new book, The Unnatural World, The Race to Remake Civilization in Earth's Newest Age.